Chapter 31. According to Simon and his attorney, Alex Penworth was a blackmailer. This from a Putnam County Assistant District Attorney named Roger Denty. Really? I said. Yes, really. They also say that after Alex died, you took up where he left off. He had a legal pad in front of him and a pen that he clicked incessantly. I see. I turned to Detectives Jenkins and Cleary. Is that why I've been invited here today? You guys can't charge me with anything because you know I killed Jason in self-defense, so you're turning me over to the ruthless Putnam County DA? We were at the station on 54th Street, in the same dismal room where Cynthia and I had first answered the detective's questions 4 weeks earlier. Also present were Sally and Dennis Keneally. The police had been kind enough to allow me a day to recuperate from my injuries before bringing me in to give a full account of the death of Jason Saunders. I had assumed Denty was there because of the accusations I'd made against Simon. Now things were taking an odd turn. We haven't made our minds up yet, said Jenkins. Bullshit, I said. Everybody in this room, with the exception of this hick, I indicated Denty, knows I didn't blackmail anybody. Neither did Alex Penworth. Furthermore, I turned back to Denty. He didn't die. He was murdered. We know, said Cleary. By Jason. That's how it looks, said Cleary. How it looks? You got another likely suspect? Jenkins jumped in. Until 2 days ago, smartass, you were all hepped up that it was the Melfis, so don't go acting like we're all a bunch of jerks. The Simon angle came out of the blue. We didn't know anything about it. Apparently you did, according to your friend here, and neither of you bothered to share it with us. The last with a derisive tilt of his shiny pate to Sally. Listen, Chrome Dome, you're pissed off because you dropped the ball on this homicide from the start and because you had a hard-on for me from the first minute we met. If you'd been a little more sensitive back then, maybe none of this would have happened. Sorry, I'm not all metrosexual and in touch with my feelings like you. I got a real grown-up job to do. Grown-up? What was the problem here? All the clues up on high shelves and there wasn't any footstool around? Jenkins started out of his chair, but Denty interrupted. Gentlemen, there's no need to get personal about this. At the moment, Mr. Brandis is not being charged. He clicked his pen at me. He's here speaking with me as a courtesy. I'm not being charged? No, I'm not being charged? What the hell are you talking about? Simon Katsikis has no interest in pressing charges so long as you refrain from any further harassment of him and his students. Who am I supposed to have been harassing? There was a Jillian Tracy present when we spoke with Mr. Katsikis. At Jillian's name, I recalled the voice on the intercom when I buzzed Jason in. I'd never know. Miss Tracy was very upset, Denty continued. She said that you called her at work, left threatening messages with her secretary. Her secretary confirms that. There's also the matter of a call from a man who identified himself as a New York City police detective. He said he wanted to speak to Miss Tracy about the murder of Alex Penworth. Curiously, none of the detectives working on the Penworth matter can remember making such a call. He nodded at Cleary and Jenkins. I'm curious about something, I said. Simon told you that both Alex and I were trying to blackmail him, but he can't be blackmailed unless he has something to hide. He's a guru, Mr. Brandis. That's a fairly odd thing, but it's not illegal. He also has a lot of high-profile people around him. The Penworths, for starters, plus several others who can only be described as people of means and who would be caused considerable embarrassment if Simon's name was enmeshed in a sex scandal. They would be drawn into it as well. You're an attorney. You know how it works. It doesn't matter whether allegations are true. People remember that they were made. They don't notice if they are attracted or if they turn out to be false. Apparently, Alex, and then you in turn, thought that Simon or the people around him would be willing to pay to avoid that kind of publicity. How does he explain the fact that one of his disciples killed the blackmailer and then tried to kill me? He's mortified. Click went the pen. I snorted. I'll bet he is. He is. Jason was like a son to him. According to Mr. Katsikas, Jason's parents were very devoted followers. Jason's mother died when Jason was young. His father suffered from terrible depressions, so Jason lived on the Katsikas farm since his early teens. Jason was obviously a troubled individual, and he must have felt that you and Alex were a threat to the stability of his adopted family. Not wanting to lose another family, one that had not wanting to lose another family, one that had taken him in after such a terrible loss, he struck out. Mr. Katsikas feels that he is at fault for having spoken too openly about his difficulties in front of Jason. Regrettable, certainly, but hardly criminal, nor actionable. I snorted again. So that's it. You've questioned him once, and you're not going to pursue this any further. There simply is nothing to indicate that Mr. Katsikas was behind Jason's actions. Look, I spelled it out all in detail when I was... Oh, these people. Look, I spelled it out in detail when I was questioned at the hospital, but let me try again. It's very simple. This guy Simon runs a cute little cult up there in Carmel. He's got a lot of people running around calling themselves his disciples, and it turns out that he's having sex with a whole bunch of them. A few years ago, one of them, a young girl he was putting it to, got pregnant and committed suicide rather than bring shame upon herself, her family, and on Simon himself. Her parents knew she was pregnant when she died, but they figured the dad to be her boyfriend, Alex, and they didn't tell him, trying to spare him the pain. He has a crisis of faith, precipitated by her death, and leaves the cult. Then a few months ago, he learns of the pregnancy. Turns out celibacy is a big deal in the cult, for everyone but Simon, that is. Alex realizes that Simon had to be the father of the child, and he starts contacting other women in the cult to get them to come forward to expose Simon and his sex act. One of those women rats him out, and Simon sends Jason to take care of the problem. Mr. Denty, even you should be able to put a case together out of that. Denty stared at me for a full 30 seconds, clicking his pen. Finally, he spoke. I have to say you spin a nice little yarn, Mr. Brandis, but what you don't understand is that the man you are accusing isn't some malefactor with a record. He may have an odd religious practice going on, but he's also a pillar of the community. That's a nice, quaint phrase. Be that as it may, when he first moved onto his farm, word got out that he was turning it into what is referred to as an ashram. People thought that this was going to be some weird cult, and they were very disturbed. However, he and the people around him have contributed in no small way to the welfare of the town. Contributions are made. So he's politically connected, I interrupted. No, that's not what I'm saying. Charitable contributions. They run a soup kitchen, organize toy and food drives around the holidays. They started an interfaith youth group that has helped tremendously with delinquency and drug problems in the county schools. So the fact that some of his supporters are high profile and politically connected in the county, the fact that Wellspring has its corporate headquarters there and brings in a lot of money, that has nothing to do with the DA's unwillingness to pursue this? Nothing whatsoever. You have to understand that we can't pursue an investigation of an individual of Mr. Katsika's stature without more than your suppositions. Click. Like I said, he continued, you spin a nice yarn. Now, he paused, if there were some tangible evidence, something that would make this more than just your allegations? I had a bad feeling about this. Denty was digging for something, maybe the journal. I glanced at Keneally, sitting in the corner with his wooden chair tilted back against the wall, his arms folded across his chest. He gave the most imperceptible of shrugs. Keneally had made it clear that, standing alone, the journal wasn't enough to hang Simon. Nothing had changed that. Now there was no way to show that it was Simon pulling Jason's string, and if I couldn't do that, I couldn't turn the journal over to this jerk unless I had collateral evidence so it couldn't be swept under the rug. You seem hesitant, Mr. Brandis. Is there anything you're keeping from me? That sealed it for me. No, there's nothing, I said. Are you sure? Yes, I said. But why don't you try this on for size? What if I go public with what I know? I'm afraid a civil suit would be brought against you. Mr. Katsikas and his counsel would take slander very seriously. This guy was sounding more and more like he was in Simon's pocket. But I'm curious about something, he continued. What was Jason looking for? What do you mean? I'm told that Jason broke into this Alex Penworth's apartment a few weeks after the murder. Then, according to you, he tortured you before you were lucky enough to overpower him. What did he think you had that he wanted? I haven't the faintest idea, I said. Really? Really, I said. You know we could get a warrant and conduct a search of your home. On what basis? On the basis that you are withholding evidence. Withholding evidence of what? You just got through telling me Simon's innocent and you're not going to pursue it. So there isn't any crime and there's no active investigation. So if you show up at my apartment with any paper, I'll shove it up your ass. Mr. Brandis, I'm talking about evidence of the blackmail charges that might be pending against you. If you're going to charge me with blackmail, then I will make the substance of that blackmail appallingly public, and I'll be immune from civil suit because that's what I need to do to mount a criminal defense. We could also be looking for evidence on the charges that could be brought against you in connection with the death of Jason Saunders. Keneally jumped in. Now you're stepping on my toes, Mr. Denty. My office decides who gets charged with a homicide that occurs in this county, and we decide to arrest, said Jenkins, much to my surprise. I raised my eyebrows at him. Hey, he said, you're a shithead, but self-defense is self-defense, and I'm an asshole, but I'm a by-the-book asshole. I turned to Denty. You got anything else? He looked around the room. At first, he must have thought that all the unfriendly faces were for me, but now they suddenly seemed to be solely for his benefit. No, I think my business here is done. He stood, put his pen into his inside jacket pocket, picked up his briefcase and overcoat, and turned to Keneally. My office will be in touch if we require anything else. You do that, said Keneally, and Denty walked out of the room. As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, Keneally said, What an asshole. Second, said Cleary. Motion carries, I said. We all sat quietly for a few moments and enjoyed the sound of Denty's pen not clicking. Then Jenkins turned his glare on me. Chrome Dome, he said. Yeah, I know, but I didn't have time to come up with anything better. What about Bronze Dome? Keneally asked. No, Cleary chimed in. That's not politically correct. And we're all about political correctness these days, aren't we, Ms. Fuentes? Said Jenkins. You boys are really cute, you know that? Said Sally, shaking her head at all of us. Listen, Cleary said, turning to me. I want to explain something to you because I take a lot of pride in my work. My partner doesn't want me to do this because he thinks it's none of your business. But you've taken your lumps in this case, and I figure you got a right to know. It's this. We gave you a hard time at the beginning because you rubbed my friend here the wrong way. But we're good at what we do. We did not miss the supposed connection, which we all thought was there, he said, pointing with a look at his partner, between Alex and the Melfis. But we in Homicide didn't share it with you, and we didn't follow it up because we got the word from Sally's division not to queer the narco investigation. They were getting close to making their case, and the brass decided that everything, the murder included, should be wrapped up at once. So yes, we gave you a hard time and we misled you. But too bad. You're not a cop. You got no status and no right to know. I guess that's as much of an apology as I'm going to get. Yes, it is, said Jenkins. And if I had my way, you wouldn't even get that. You were still wrong about who killed him, right up to the end. We were all wrong, I said. Jenkins didn't respond. He just stood and said, I'm out of here, and walked out. Cleary was close behind him, but paused in the doorway. Stay out of trouble, he said. I nodded, and he was gone. So it all comes down to this, I said, alone with Sally and Keneally. Simon's going to get away with it. What a waste. Not completely, said Keneally. You still got the guy who put his hands around Alex's throat. I wonder how responsible he was. What do you mean? I mean, this guy, this guru, he's got a lot of control over these people. He exerts a lot of pressure. I'm not sure Jason can be held totally accountable for his own actions. Hey, Keneally said, in the end, we're all accountable for our own actions. We all make our own choices, whatever the pressures are. As a prosecutor, I have to believe that. As a cop, Sally knows it. I think you do too. Sally and I nodded. As for Simon, we may never know if he put Jason up to it or not. Maybe it really went down the way Denty said. No way, I said. The timeline is too cute. Everything Jason did immediately followed something that was a threat to Simon. Alex's murder followed his calls to the women, specifically Jillian, and his questions about the past, about Megan. The break-in at Alex's apartment came after Simon searched for the journal himself when the Penworths came to go through Alex's things, and after I had spoken with Mr. Penworth and told him that I had questions about how his son died. The first attack on me came after I started making calls to women in the cult, the same calls that Alex made before he was killed. Then Jason tries to kill me the same day I try to put the screws to Jillian. Jason was being guided. Keneally nodded. You're probably right, but what can I tell you? Some of them get away. He picked up his briefcase and overcoat and walked to the door. Give me a call. We'll do steak at Luger's, he said, and left me alone with Sally. I'm not sure I understand everything that went on here, she said. Doesn't matter, I said. They're probably right. It's over. You don't sound happy. I'm not. You should be. You took a real beating the past few weeks. For nothing. Not for nothing. You cracked the case. And my brain pan, I said, and a few ribs. Well, that should teach you a lesson, she said. And what would that be? The next time you get involved in something like this, maybe you should leave it to the big boys. Or maybe the little girls. I'll show you, little. I believe you already have. And I'd like you to stay healthy, she said, so I can show you again. I sat on my front stoop with a bottle of Pilsner Urquell in a brown paper bag. Just inside the front door was a cooler filled with ice and the rest of the six-pack, together with some extra paper bags in case the one I was using got soggy from condensation and fell apart. It was the first really warm day of spring. I was sipping the ice-cold beer and watching the world go by. 4 months had passed since the death of Jason Saunders, and all of my external scars and bruises had healed. Inside, I wasn't doing too badly either. I didn't think about Simon every day anymore, just most of them. On the days I did think about him, it was only every third or fourth that I was filled with a rage so consuming that I had to head downtown to where my friend Michael was bartending and drink myself into oblivion, talking with him about the injustices of this world until the sun came up and sent us both home. Maybe someday I'll grow up and accept the things I cannot change. I hope not. I've always had the sneaking suspicion that the folks who do that keep adding more and more things to that list, either out of fear or laziness. That can only lead to a deadly complacency, and I don't want to live in that world. For today, at any rate, the sun was shining, and I didn't need anything more than a t-shirt, jeans, and sports sandals to feel comfortable in the light breeze blowing east from the Hudson. I took another sip of beer and watched two young women walk by. They were enjoying the first halter top day of the year, and so was I. They walked west, and I saw the by now familiar form of Sally coming my way from farther down the block. I wasn't expecting her until later, but maybe crime had taken the day off to enjoy the weather. As she got closer, I saw something purposeful in her stride and the set of her shoulders. Today was not going to be the day for a little afternoon delight on the roof. When she got to the stoop, she didn't sit. "Hey," she said. No kiss. Bad sign. "Hey yourself," I replied. She stood, hands in her pockets, studying my face. I wasn't sure what she was looking for, but I was happy to let her do it. It gave me the chance to study hers, something I didn't think I'd tire of for a long time. "Beer?" I asked and tilted my bag towards her. "No," she said, continuing to look at me. I waited for whatever was coming. Finally, she either saw what she was looking for or she didn't. "I guess you haven't heard," she said. "What?" I asked. At approximately 9 a.m. this morning, while Simon Katsikis was tilling a field on his farm, a man came out of the woods adjoining the property. He stepped squarely into the path of Simon's John Deere tractor and emptied 7 rounds from a Colt 45 semi-automatic into Simon's chest. Then he sat down and let the tractor and the attached offset disc tiller run him over. Do they know who it was? Yes. In spite of the fact that getting run over by an offset disc tiller will render a man virtually unrecognizable, the state police were able to identify him as one Robert Sheehan. How? He had ID in his wallet, and his prints were okay. They're still on file with the DOD. It was him. "Wow," I said. "Sounds like he was pretty pissed off about something." "And what would that be?" "Maybe it would be the fact that his daughter abandoned her family's faith for Simon's, and then Simon betrayed her trust and drove her to suicide. That was over 7 years ago. Why would he go gunning for Simon now? Revenge is a dish best served cold?" "Right." "I got a question for you," I said. "Why are you telling me all this?" "I thought you'd be interested, what with your history with Simon, all the warm feelings you have for him. Let me put it another way. Why are you telling me like this? What are you so upset about?" "I don't like murder." "Me neither. And I don't like murderers." "We're still in agreement." "I think you orchestrated this." "And how would I have done that?" "I don't know. But there was something you knew, something you had that you held back from Denty. I don't know what it is, but you told Sheehan about it, and now Simon is dead. I'm trying to decide if that makes you responsible. Legally or morally. I'm not here as a cop. I'm here as the woman who's been falling in love with you." It was the first time that word had been used between us. I wish it had been under better circumstances. I thought we all agreed that people are ultimately responsible for their own actions. That's all you have to say? I'll also paraphrase something our friend Roger Denty said. She sneered at the mention of Denty's name. "What's that?" "It is regrettable that anything I may have told Mr. Sheehan would lead him to take such action." She nodded. "If it helps any, I didn't break the law," I said. "You bent it. You never skirt the rules when you're chasing a bad guy?" "That's different," she said. "I'm a cop." "You're right," I said. "It is different. It's worse." She nodded again and looked down at the street for a moment, then back to me. "I need some time to think about this." It was my turn to nod. "Take all the time you need," I said. "You know where to find me." "Yes, I do," she said, and walked away. I watched until she reached the corner of Amsterdam and turned left, out of sight and, for now, out of my life. I turned my face back to the sun. Even with its warmth, I could recall with startling clarity the feeling of bitter cold the day less than a month ago when I had stood with Robert Sheehan in the back of his yard. Sheehan had found an old bottle of charcoal starter fluid in his garage. He had doused the pages of his daughter's journal and placed it with reverence into a galvanized steel pail. Then he tossed in a match. There had been a solid whoomp as the starter fluid ignited, and we had stood together and watched silently as his daughter's words went up in flames and her hopes and prayers went who knows where. The heat from the flames was not like the gentle warmth of the sun this day on my stoop. It had made the skin on my face feel tight. I shook off these memories and thought for a while. I thought about family and I thought about loss, how the two can combine to drive you down some lonely and frightening roads. For Alex and Sheehan, those roads had led to their deaths. For Alex, it was forced on him. For Sheehan, I bet he welcomed it. I thought about Atticus Finch dropping his glasses in the road before shooting the rabid dog. I thought about justice. I'd be damned if I could figure out what it was. But for now, other than a nagging worry about whether I'd be able to salvage something with Sally, I was at peace with the world. The end. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel to get notifications of upcoming live streams. Make sure you ring the bell and head over to my website, matthewarkin.com, and sign up for my newsletter so that you get copies of articles that I write on writing, acting, and the craft of storytelling.